Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient. Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient.
Hello, friends, and welcome back. I'm Jen Chambers, and if you've been with me for a while, you might notice something a little bit different today. This podcast, which was formerly Resilient with Jen Chambers, is now called Your Voice Matters with Jen Chambers. Why the change? I thought I'd explain just a little bit today. Because over time, this space has grown into something really beautiful and much bigger than just my story. It's become a place for your stories, too. This is what I always wanted. Stories of resilience, stories of healing, stories of creativity, and stories of courage. I wanted the title to reflect that. So you still get me, Jen, guiding us along, but now I have an even clearer mission. My mission is helping you write and share and honor your story, because your voice truly does matter. And with that, welcome to week 6 of our special series, Write Your Own Story, an 8-part journey into crafting personal narratives that heal, connect, and inspire. This week, week 6, we're going to mine the details. This week's theme is all about deepening your story through rich and specific details. In the past few weeks, we've already talked about structure and voice and emotion, but now it's time to look at texture. The images and moments and sensory experiences you write that take your story from something that's just interesting to something that's unforgettable. You don't need to remember everything from your past, particularly if you're doing a memoir essay. But the right detail at the right time is gold. For our first writing exercise, we're going to zoom in. It's a little bit similar to last week, but also different. I want you to think of a key scene in your story. Now pick one small object in that scene, something like a cup or a piece of clothing or a tree outside the window. Now I want you to write a paragraph just about that object. What does it look like? What does it smell like? What memories does it hold? Why does this object matter? Sometimes the smallest things say the most. And it might really add a lot to your particular story, or it might be a good beginning to a very impactful memoir essay. All right. After you do that one, I want to do the second writing exercise, which is a sense memory. Please set a timer for 7 minutes. I want you to think about one of the 5 senses that you want to choose. Now, I want you to write a story using only details connected to that sense. You can do it using the object that you wrote about before a minute ago or not. But if you choose something like smell, maybe the story unfolds through the scent of your grandmother's soap. I had this experience. My grandmother passed away about a year ago, and she was much loved. And I was lucky enough to inherit one of her aprons. I put it on, and her smell just hit me like a freight train. I mean, I literally had to sit down. My knees buckled because her smell was so potent, and it just reminded me of being in her kitchen and the way that she tried to care for people. That was incredibly interesting for me to experience. And I think that if I were to choose the apron, I could write about the experience of having my grandmother and about she was very restrained, but at times she could be very effusive in things like caring about you when you came to her house in her particular way. And I think that her her way of doing things really passed on to me. And so I could use that story maybe to explain how I am also restrained in certain ways because I learned that from her, or the way that her hands felt. I could talk about that in relation to something that she helped me to make with her bread maker, and how she used to love making bread, and how that was one of the ways that she cared for all of us. Every time she came over, she would make a special bread in her bread maker, and she would make special butters to go with it. That was just her way. So I could tell my story in that way, through the smell of her detergent and her perfume unfolding from that apron. Or it could be something completely different. You could use sound as your sense. Maybe you're writing about the creak of a hallway floor that told you that your grandmother was home, but your grandmother's story was completely different. Maybe your grandmother was scary and you wanted to hide every time you heard that creak. The exercise using these sense memories helps unlock things and layers that live in your body, not just your brain. When you're talking about the sounds, you could use the sound to unlock how it felt hiding in the closet and having your body screwed up as tiny as it could possibly go. So there's a lot that it's very rich using these. All right, for our third exercise today, and I apologize, I'm getting over my sickness, but I'm still a little bit breathy. Our third writing exercise is the detail that reveals. Now I want you to write a scene where you reveal something important about yourself, not by telling, but by showing through one vivid detail. For example, instead of saying, I was lonely, you write, I pretended to fall asleep before the cake was cut. No one noticed that I didn't come out of my bedroom. Let your details do the emotional heavy lifting. So for some recommended resources this week, these books are fantastic for studying the power of these small details and using the sensory storytelling. The Art of Memoir by a woman called Mary Carr is very helpful, especially her chapter on sacred carnality. Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott. She is one of my favorite writers ever for encouragement and using precision in your detail. Also, just reading anything by Anne Lamott is a masterclass on memoir. Everything she writes is a different facet of who she is, and it's just incredible. So I very much recommend that. And also there's a book called The Situation and the Story by Vivian Gornick. She talks about making meaning from moments. I also always recommend On Writing by Stephen King. He's just a master anyway, but he's got some really great ideas on how to make your stories shine. Now, you can use those exercises today. Your zooming in on an object, your sense memory, or your detail that reveals. You can use those all as part of one memoir essay that talks about you. Whenever you're thinking about memoir, you don't necessarily have to give everything away in one story. So using all of those things can put together one very, very emotionally impactful and telling story that shows something about you. Or you can use those all as separate chapters if you're doing a longer memoir. Now, before I go today, just a gentle reminder, if you have a story of your own resilience or your own experiences, big or small, I would be honored to read it. Submissions are open for my new anthology, Woven with Light, Mended with Gold, True Stories of Resilience, is a collection of true stories from real people who have faced things like illness or loss or adversity and come through it with grace and grit and growth. Any of the things you have written based on any of my exercises, or anything that you've written that's true from your own history, I'd love to hear it. The deadline is June 30th, 2025. You can find all the details and submit your story via link in my Instagram bio at Jennifer_Chambers_ or at www.jennifer-chambers.com. That's all for this week. I hope that this episode helps you fall even more in love with your own story and the details that make your story uniquely yours. And remember, this space is evolving just like you. Thank you so much for staying with me. I'm so grateful that you're here. Until next time, keep writing, keep discovering, and never forget that your voice matters.
Sometimes we have to start over. Sometimes we have to fight back. Sometimes it's all too much. Lost inside the black. Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient. Our stories are brilliant. We are resilient. Sometimes we need to lift the voices of those who've overcome and expose the ones that made the choices to stay and fight now.